Hello, hello. You caught me typing. Hello, world. Happy Wednesday. It is July 12th. It is a little bit after 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and this is our normal bat time and bat channel here for another episode of Automation Unplugged. Today we are here for show 247 and but before I go live and I am live, but before I introduce our guest, I was gonna mention this is totally random, but I'm so excited I have to share it with you that I just got back from a quarterly planning session with my team, and we have lots of fun and exciting things here at One Firefly in store for the channel and the industry. And we're super excited for CEDIA, which is right around the corner in early September. So definitely stay tuned for announcements, product and service solution announcements from One Firefly. We've been listening to feedback from our clients and from the space, and pretty excited that we have a lot of fun things in store for all of you that are watching and listening. So definitely keep your ears peeled. But we did that meeting actually in a really beautiful place. We went out to Jackson, Wyoming. And for those of you that are familiar with that part of the world, if you look at a map, you'll notice it's right there in the Rocky Mountains. And I believe that's what you would call that. But it's right there near a couple of national parks, Grand Teton National Park and Yellowstone. And so I brought the family, brought my wife and my son, and we did the work stuff, and that was awesome. So thankful my team came out there. Many of them brought their families, actually. Everyone made a little family vacation out of it. And with my family, we went in and enjoyed our great national parks. And so uh, up until that point, maybe like many of you, when I'm thinking of going somewhere really special, I would, with my family, say on a vacation, we're often looking, can I go to the Caribbean or can I go to some foreign country and explore when we have so much amazing places to visit and explore right here in the good old US of A. And we went out to our national parks, Grand Teton and Yellowstone, and it was awe-inspiring. And so much so that we were already, as soon as we got back, we were already planning our next trip to go back to the place we had just come from. So if you have never been there, definitely check it out. And it's beautiful to drive. We actually flew into Salt Lake City and then drove up through Northeast Utah into Idaho and Wyoming, and just through the mountains, and lots of ups and downs and curvy roads and just beautiful sights. And, we saw all sorts of animals we don't normally see, and obviously beautiful sights and sounds. And it was really quality family time. So that's my advice. This country has set aside so many beautiful areas which are reserved for the people. And you need to get out there and explore those areas. We did that, and we're so thankful that we did. So without further ado, let's jump into it. We're here for show 247. And today I have a special guest. And I, as you all know, if you're regular listeners, I like to bring folks in from throughout the industry in all different roles and responsibilities. And today we're going to get a product marketing perspective, and from a major manufacturer that everyone here has heard of and likely purchased multiple products from, whether related to your CI business or just personally. And that is today I have John Henkel, Director of Product Marketing at NETGEAR, and specifically NETGEAR AV. And so, well, what's the AV part of that equation? We're gonna learn about that as well, and learn what NETGEAR is trying to do in the AV space, specifically in the residential side of things. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring in John and see how he's doing, and we'll get this party started. John, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Ron. Great to meet you for the first time, and thanks for
Yeah.
having me here.
You are welcome. I am wearing my hat because I have crazy hair today, so I'm putting the hat on here.
I don't have that problem. You can see.
There you go. You know, we have different solutions to problems. There's more than
Right.
one way to solve problems. John, where are you coming to us from?
I am coming to you from a small town in Northern California called Nevada City. Still in California. It's on the way between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe. Everybody's heard of Tahoe. So
I've heard of Lake Tahoe as one of those places I need to visit. I've never been there.
Another one. So you did the Tetons, you did Yellowstone. Now come out to Lake Tahoe, and you could cross them off your list.
I've also, you said you live in Nevada City?
Yeah.
I've never heard of Nevada City. So tell us about Nevada City.
So it's actually adjacent to a little slightly larger town called Grass Valley. And from the broadcast world, people have heard of Grass Valley Group, perhaps. There's actually a town called Grass Valley, and they built this little area. It's 3 hours from the Bay Area, where I spent many, many years in San Francisco and then Oakland for a long time. And as the pandemic hit, my wife and I were trying to get out of the big city. We have relatives up here. There's a couple of good tech companies up here. AJA and Telestream are located up here as well. And there was this little weird little mecca of some tech, some really good people. And we're just 3 hours from my HQ in San Jose.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Well, tell us, and we're going to go through a number of different areas of fun convo today, but yes, all sorts of fun things to talk about. But first of all, product marketing at NETGEAR AV. Is NETGEAR AV different than NETGEAR? Like,
that's a good question. Yeah. So NETGEAR, like you said, everybody's heard of NETGEAR forever. You probably have NETGEAR in your house. I'm working on an Orbi router, wireless mesh thing for my house. So NETGEAR has been around as a consumer company for a long time. We also have this business division, NETGEAR Business, for a number of years as well. But really, when we started focusing on the AV portion for commercial and the CI channel, is when those of us that are working it said we need some way to really identify that this is different than the rest of NETGEAR. We have products that are focused for that. So we kind of rebranded our own team last year and said NETGEAR AV. So you kind of understand there's a different part of NETGEAR now.
Got it. And at a high level, what are your roles and responsibilities there in NETGEAR AV land?
I do all the product marketing, which means data sheets, brochures, things like that. My team and I work on all those. The web pages for products, podcasts, things like that, webinars as well. We do a lot of channel relations as well. So if you are selling NETGEAR products, we'll be the ones to provide you with some of that imagery and the data sheets and the cut sheets and everything else for that too. Where do I stop? It's endless. A lot of trade shows, of course, too. There's so many things that we do in product marketing, but really at essence, it's really translating what the product line managers do or product managers do, which is very technical, into really what are the benefits for you.
You mentioned podcast. Is there a NETGEAR podcast, or what's that from a content creation in terms of video or audio format? What are you guys doing regularly?
We haven't been as regular as you, like since 2017.
That's for that. Right.
We are starting a more regular series. We've had webinars for years, like once a month. We've had webinars that product line managers and myself will do here and there. We're just starting up with some Ask an Expert series coming up on LinkedIn Live. It's going to be once a month, and a little shorter kind of coffee break series, we call it, on our web platform. That'll be just a simple topic, a little bite-sized topic we can help you with. So 15, 20 minutes. That'll be more of a regular cadence. Haven't graduated to the full-time regular podcast yet.
It's hard for those that are listening. You don't know this, so I'm going to help describe what I'm seeing. But for the people that are watching, you clearly see, and it would be over your left shoulder, I see this beautiful piece of gold hardware. Can you tell us what ornament that is, or what trophy that is?
I forget, of course. Yes, there are people listening. So yes, describe it. That is an Emmy. I have a past life, like a lot of people do, of course. And I won that with the team from NBC Sports on the 2004 Olympics in Athens.
All right. Give me a little bit more there. That sounds amazing. Like, not many people. You're my first Emmy Award winner here on the Automation Unplugged podcast. What team were you on, or what was your role in ultimately being awarded that Emmy? That's, by the way, congratulations. It's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. It has my name on it, of course, and they spelled it right. The first thing I checked when I got it. a few years ago. So I spent about 10 years, and we can talk about some of this later on, as a contractor, working for an audio mixer manufacturer that's actually was based up here called Graham Patent Systems.
Okay.
Uh, and they had audio mixers that were being used in the Olympics. NBC Sports was the one, or were the ones who were putting that on. And they come to the Olympics and have their major broadcast facility, of course, within the international complex, if you will. So they hired me to come in with others as an edit supervisor, come in and we set up the edit rooms. We call them the TOES rooms, traditional old edit systems, not the newer fangled, this is old still, not the non-linear rooms. These are the linear tape-based rooms. So we come in with 4 or 5 of us and set up these rooms ahead of time, about a week or 2, I think, of setup. We have training manuals we create, make sure everything's working right. Then the editors fly in from all over the world, from Paris, from US, from Germany, and they come in and use the rooms. We train them on how the equipment uses, because they might not have used all the specific equipment. And then we kind of sit back and coast, hopefully, with no issues or emergencies during the actual games. And they produce all the segments you see, all the background stories, all the, maybe it's the live recap of the events, all that stuff that they work on during the show.
What did that feel like to be part of such a globally known event or activity?
It was pretty cool, Ron. For me at the time, I was a contractor. So for me, first of all, it was like a 7-8 week gig, and that was awesome. I got paid for 7 weeks straight. But really, there's a whole group of people that have done this for many, many, many years. And I had done Salt Lake City in 2002 first, and then they wanted the same group back for 2004. So for me, it was a new experience. And this is the top of the pack, the cream of the cream in Sony broadcast. People were there big time, all kinds of other people. They're the number one people, because everything's got to work. There's just no backup. Well, you have backup. I mean, there's no other choice. It's going to go, which is one thing I love about live, actually. So it was great working with these super knowledgeable, experienced people. I learned a lot. They were good people, because you're hanging around at close quarters for weeks, and some of them are months. So they're really good people. Some of them I still keep up with as friends. And that was a really pleasurable experience, besides the fact you're working on the Olympics, which everybody in the world has heard about. And that's pretty special for sure. So that was a great experience.
This podcast, you mentioned, I've been doing this interview show since 2017. And from day one, we were always live. And in the little, in our industry, residential and commercial industry, there's some different shows out there. I'm the only live show. And on day one, we were live, and we're still live today. And you're always living a little bit by the edge of your seat in that you're live, and our regular audience knows that, because sometimes there's hiccups, and it just happens. You're live.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the lessons you learned, just out of curiosity, in being live? Like, what leads to a good live experience for the audience?
Yeah, preparation, number one, hands down, for anything. Preparation. For a podcast, know your material, of course, ahead of time. Do your homework, but also for the Olympics, of course, they have spent the last year or two before the other Olympics that just finished getting ready for the next one. So they have everything set up. There are massive backups, of course, in case of equipment failure. They're just used to that in broadcast in general. So prepare, have the right people in place to make sure that things are going to work right. And you can empower them to make those decisions if you need to, in case of something going down. And you have a backup plan always.
Have a plan.
Yeah.
Have a plan, and then know that your plan probably won't go as planned, and have a plan. If your plan doesn't go as planned, what's the plan?
Yeah, it's going to happen. Something's going to happen. So first of all, don't get freaked out by that too. Because, when something happens, sometimes if you're so caught up in, it has to be a certain way, I got to make this thing happen the right way, and then it doesn't, then you can't figure out how to undo that. And that's what I learned. I've learned that a long time ago, is to have backup plans, and don't get too freaked out when something doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. John, let's go back in time, sir. Let's go back to, as much as you're willing to cover, tell us about your background. Like, here you are at NETGEAR AV, and you're in the CI channel working with integrators and driving this product category. How did you land here? Go as far back as you're willing to go.
We have an hour, don't we? Or so, yeah.
We do. Yeah, we could make it 2 or 3 hours. Tell us.
Yeah, well,
good stuff.
I go back. I was really raised in Indianapolis, Indiana. Moved there when I was 2. I'm not going to go back every year. Don't worry. But the key thing to that was I was in a township of schools that had a career center, and it was fantastic. And we also had the Benjamin Harrison base, Army base there for the head of finances was there. And there was a defense information school at that facility there too. So like in 7th grade, I remember going out to the defense information school, learning radio at those great old, Army style consoles with the big knobs and everything. That's when I first got my taste of, this is fun. I like operating equipment. And then in high school, we had a career center that had an auto lab, had nursing, had all kinds of stuff. And they had a radio and television set up as well. So I got into there, took a TV class summer of my freshman year. Or no, that was somewhere in there. And then had a radio show all through high school, the jazz show with John
You
Henkel.
were the DJ or the MC of the show?
Yeah, I did some morning announcement kind of stuff and did those. And then I started playing around with equipment then. I really loved just the operation of equipment. There's some actors and things in my family. My dad was a part-time actor. So I have some of that performance in me, but I wasn't a performer. I was always stage crew guy. I was a stage crew nerd, not the AV nerd, similar. Right. Stage crew guy. So I loved all the equipment operating that. So I got through high school, went off to Purdue University to be an electrical engineer. That was too much theory. I wanted more of the hands-on. Ended up in just radio and television and got a job my summer of my freshman year. That's what it was. Summer of 1980 to date myself. I got a job in TV. So I started working in broadcast television in Indianapolis then, got up to do news and other production specials and things like that, doing audio mostly, running camera and stuff. Then went to work for a video production company that bought a new editing system, built a whole new facility, helped wire the facility, build the consoles, and started being a video editor. So I learned how to do tape-based video editing and all the effects. I love that. Making stuff flip, tumble, and spin and doing local commercials in longer form segments. And that got me out to the
before digital, right? So
this is linear tape-based. Yeah.
All right. For those that are uninformed, what is linear tape-based? What does that mean? Break it down for me like I'm a 5th grader.
Good one. So when you shoot something, you shoot it on tape, videotape, of course. So you come back with these 47 different videotapes, and they all have time code on them. They have a number for each frame of video, and you have to go through and find the shots and put them together in the right order. That means transferring it from one tape to another tape, your master tape, with a time code for the 2 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever those shots were, and build an edit list of all those events. It's all linear, so you have to lay it out in real time. Stop, lay the next shot out, stop. You can't move them around without having to go back and relay everything else in real time. So again, back to preparation, you have to think ahead to know what you're building as far as maybe a bunch of layers of effects. As you're making a big cube spin around with different stuff on it, you got to really focus and figure that out ahead of time so you don't have to go back and, I want to change that third shot. Well, now you have to go back and do everything else after that if you pulled it out.
So it's very manual.
Yeah. It's not as creative as it is more number crunching and technical operating the equipment and knowing how to pull it off and not spend 5 hours on something that should take an hour because they're paying, could be $1,000 an hour for what I was doing sometimes.
Were you, I'm curious, in that role, you technically knew how to do it. Were you also the creative, figuring out not only technically how to do it, but what should be done? Or were you normally partnered or allied with a creative and then collaboratively you would execute?
It's certainly more collaborative. Somebody would come in with the vision, the producer, director, or creative director, art director would have their vision, and we have to pull it off some way. So it's a little bit of both, but I would say in my particular brain and what I was doing was less of that overall creative craziness than pulling off somebody else's vision along the way.
That's interesting. So keep going. I interrupted you, so keep going.
That's great.
What's the career trajectory?
So editing, and I was having fun and playing. I wanted to get out west. In reading those trade mags at the time, you read about places in San Francisco or Chicago. Chicago is a great market as well, doing some really great special effects, doing these high-end commercials that we've all seen. So I was feeling the pull. I had a sister who lived in San Francisco for a while and thought that'd be really cool. So long story short, I did get a job in San Francisco for an editing facility. And then another one offered, they suffered from the earthquake. This was 1990 when I moved there. They had a big 89 earthquake. A new facility is being built up, multi-million-dollar facility, latest of all this equipment. It was really freaking cool. And I'm a little guy from the Midwest going, hey, I'd like to work for you if you don't mind. So they hired me, and I was just living in cloud nine, living in San Francisco, in the early 90s, single, nothing, no tie downs, whatever, working my butt off at this high end facility making commercials. You've all seen like the Hershey's Kisses commercials, the holiday one they bring out. We did stuff
Sure.
like that. We did tons of Nike commercials as well. But before Industrial Light and Magic had their own facility, they would come to us at Western Images, where I worked, and
Wow.
Colossal Pictures, and do stuff with us. Just a really fun time. Really great people. Amazing talent for digital artists. Now we're getting into like the artists who are doing all the designing digitally and rotoscoping, taking one frame, cutting something out frame by frame. This is the hard way. This is how I learned how to do some stuff I do now, still in Photoshop, just tracing around somebody. Of course, now the software does it for you automatically. But that was the fun time for me also, was working with artists who were not editors like I was, and they kind of changed things up. Like, let's just make a reel of these shapes moving around, make a reel of these shapes, and then bring them together and see what happens, and just kind of figure out what might come of that versus trying to plan everything out accordingly. And I'll never forget that moment with one of the artists. It's just those things, you just can't go back. That time of life was pretty special for sure.
In that example, was that for like an artist that was going to do an artist installation, and they were just inventing and using you as the editor and your facilities for that creation?
We did some of that. This was an artist on staff who was used to doing stuff on his own and was working with me in this linear style edit bay that was a little bit different. And I always wanted to say, what's your vision? Let me just map it out. We'll do this. He's like, let's just throw these things together and try to see what comes of it. So in that case, it was an internal artist. We did stuff for some, with like John Schofield was a name in the video world back in the day. We did a thing with Todd Rundgren. I remember a couple things with him back in the day as well. So that was fun. And there's one little detour I'll take you on too, that was when I got in People magazine as well.
What? All right. Tell me more.
Breaks. So I was one day, honestly, where this woman had come in. We'd been doing a lot of work with her on some medical instructional videos, nothing real fancy, but just, I forget who she worked for. And she had had the idea to work on some soft porn movies, more with a women's focus than just the men's. So she had done this film, and she had come into our facility to change a credit. That's all it did. She didn't edit it there, and I wasn't the editor, but her editor was there and change a credit. Well, People magazine was doing a story on her that day. So they came in with a photographer that day in the edit suite I was working in. And there's me posing with the editor and the producer director of this film. So then, which was great, pretty cool. So I have the conversation with my mom now, because People magazine is pretty big. Mom, I'm in People magazine. It looks like I'm editing porn. Sorry, I'm not. What?
Oh, that's amazing. So that was just that one day random shot in time, but you're now in People magazine.
15 minutes to change a name on the credits. That was it. But that was the right time, right place. When
did the transition from tape to digital happen, particularly as it relates to video editing? Like, what was the time period, and what was your role in that?
Well, that's interesting. That was early 90s. So I remember all those systems coming online. Avid is a well-known name now for video editing for years. One of the biggest non-linear edit companies. So what I did for a long time, because Avid wasn't high enough quality yet, they could rough cut on there and do 14 versions of a commercial, pick the one, and come into my suite with all the final editing. And then we put all the shots together in the right order that they had given me. So that was early 90s or so, and then took off from there. So really mid 90s, late 90s, early 2000s is when it just took off and it faded away. The tape-based systems really faded away. And that's unfortunate, because there was a bunch of companies who were those editorial companies who would do that finishing or do the pre, and then we do all the finishing. That changed the industry. So all those post-production houses like I worked in faded away. And that gave rise to it really empowered all these people to do it on their own then. They didn't have to come to a big company.
Yeah, I'm curious. We're today, 2023, we're in this rise of AI, and there's all this talk of jobs that are going to be lost, and all these scary things that are popular to talk about. At the same time, what's often not commonly talked about is all the new things that will come from this, all the new jobs, new industries, changes in society. But going back to this digital transition that
Mhm.
you observed in the early 90s, did the tape or the analog video editors and all the people in that space, did they leave the industry or did they transition into this digital transition? What was that like?
They transitioned, and to be honest, sometimes I kind of miss that. I wish I'd stayed with it with editing. There's people who are still editing today that I work with back then, so they transitioned for sure. And in some ways, I hate to use the same word again, but it empowered them, but it gave them more control over the craft. It was just easier to do this editing now on these nonlinear platforms and all the motion graphics and things. So some of those editors could now do everything from the motion graphics production and also editing the same way. And people realize that, hey, I can edit on my iPhone now. I can do my own videos. And once you start doing that, you go, it doesn't look the same. It doesn't have the same rhythm. It's hard. So, there is truth to, you need a professional sometimes to do that. And these people have maintained that for sure.
And so it was in that early 90s. I'm trying to think the timing for the Olympics. When did you say that was?
2002 was Salt Lake for
Okay.
me.
So, all right. So take me the 90s into the early 2000s and how did that opportunity present itself?
Yeah, so I was editing time of my life, like I said, San Francisco, cool stuff. We used one of this new editing platform that was really a mix of linear and nonlinear, because then disc-based systems started coming out, where you could put a bunch of video onto a digital disc, and jump around from 1 second in to 45 seconds, and you could build that nonlinearly, basically, and combine that with the really great processing power we had of real-time video coming through with high-end digital video players and recorders and things, and effect systems that would flip and tumble stuff live versus having to process that. Because back then that would take minutes to like chunk through. So our graphics artists were always really good at pool. We had a pool table at work because they go set up their shots and to go render out for half an hour.
And they go play
go out to the
pool.
Exactly. They'd always beat the editors because we were stuck in the edit bay. But so there's a mix of those things. So the system we used from a small company called ACOM at the time, they'd come in and they help us tweak this massive keyboard and control the discs and control the video switcher and the digital effects devices. And I thought, that's fun. I'd like to help them make the equipment for an editor. So I went to work for them. It's one of those things in life where you got to just take it. 30% decrease in salary, make the move. And it was one of the best decisions of my life. So as an editor, I got to work for these guys and help train editors, other people, how to use it. And those editors were great. I did a lot of time at NBC. That's why I got the NBC gig. At 30 Rock, training their editors how to use it, and you customize certain things on the editor, because I was one of them. So I could speak their language.
You spoke their language. You were one of them. That allowed you in the door, and they would accept you. That makes sense.
And that was fun. Again, I mean, I'm traveling around the world, Sydney, Singapore, Munich, wherever, London, for helping companies install their systems and train their editors, and then, go away and watch them work. That was great. And then when I came back, I did some work on website development and work for other manufacturers on product development as well, product management for the audio mixer manufacturer I mentioned, some others. Started a small company with some friends up here in Grass Valley called Renegade Labs. I always liked that name.
It's a good name.
A small digital audio mixer that people could use in post-production suites. It wasn't big enough for me to sustain a full-time job. So there was 10 years. I was laid off first to go back. So I went to work for the manufacturer for a couple of years and then was laid off, knowing they could still hire me for training and other customers could hire me directly. And that's when I realized I should take my first motorcycle trip across the country to get into another topic. So that was.
What was your first trip? Where'd you go?
So I went about 8 weeks around the country. Forgot how many thousands of miles. I went from San Francisco to Vegas for NAB Broadcasting Convention. I had a friend turning 40 in New Orleans. So I said, I'll just keep on going. I've got no job, no relationship. This is the time, because I may never happen again. So I went to New Orleans, then up through the Smoky Mountains and saw a friend in Atlanta, a sister in DC. I went to New York on a different trip and then came across the Midwest, saw my family, went up to Door County in Wisconsin, another beautiful place in the country you should go see. And
Which
then
part?
In Door County, it's called, Wisconsin. It's the thumb of Wisconsin.
Okay.
If you will. Anyway, and then came across through South Dakota and Badlands and Yellowstone and Grand Tetons as well. And then I eventually won my way back to California. So, yeah.
That's all right. So I'm going to put a pin in that. I'm going to come back to the motorcycle trek and bring us,
all the way through. I'll cut to the chase. So that got me into product management, product marketing. And after 10 years of contract work, I realized I needed a full-time gig because as the linear stuff was starting to die down, I didn't retrain myself to nonlinear, be able to teach all the avid courses, things like that. So I got a job in product management and technical writing, did a lot of tech writing as well. So I was the first product manager, tech writer for a company called Element Labs that became part of Barco's Pixel Dots, I think it was, or something like that, making LED screens. They did a lot of concert tours. You saw LED screens back in, again, 2004, 5, 7, somewhere in there. And they did really cool, great processing on LED walls for concert tours and things. And then they ran into some problems. I was laid off from them, went to work for a company called Prism, Prysm. I was going to be careful about that. Did my time at Prism in Prism.
It sounds like that's a bad thing.
It's a subtle thing. So they made a new technology, which was pretty fun, with lasers on a little display, like a 25-inch diagonal display cube, for making video walls. So they were in stealth mode for several years. They came public when I was there as well. So they have this technology called laser phosphor display, LPD, that was supposed to rival LCD, low power, really seamless displays. You could put them edge to edge and all this stuff. It never quite got to where they wanted it to be. It was still kind of deep of a package and had a weird little shape and everything. So anyway, I worked for them for several years in product management, and then went to work for RGB Spectrum, where I'd done some tech writing before. RGB Spectrum's been around for 30 years, maybe now, 25, making video wall processors and multi-viewers, mostly for the commercial market, but they'll get into residential CI stuff here and there. And then that's where I kind of rose up through product marketing and really got into director of product marketing for NETGEAR, doing the website and collateral stuff. And then a little time at Atlona, and then NETGEAR came calling. So Atlona, everybody knows from the residential market. I thought I need to change it up a bit here. I'm getting older. I don't want to spend my rest of my life here. So Atlona and Garth called, and we had a good little thing going there. And then NETGEAR called, and I felt bad, but NETGEAR, everybody's heard of NETGEAR. I've never worked for a company that everybody knew about. You talk to your, in-laws, they're like, who do you work for? What? But everybody knows NETGEAR. And that is a good story, because NETGEAR started focusing on the pro AV industry first, the commercial industry, and now CI. And they're putting together a team. They wanted somebody, didn't matter who you were or where you were from. They wanted the right person to come in for pro AV marketing. We had a sales and biz dev guy and a more manufacturers guy as well. So really three-pronged approach here to start focusing on pro AV. So like NETGEAR, never would have thought of them for AV background, but it worked out.
Help me understand. So what is NETGEAR doing today to serve the audience that might be watching or listening to this show? Because I think NETGEAR, I think of, the many pieces of NETGEAR hardware I picked up for my house over the years at Best Buy. And that's obviously very different than maybe the applications for a CI business. So what is it like today? And at a high level, where's NETGEAR going in terms of their focus on the space?
Well, as more and more things started turning to IP, certainly AV over IP was a big thing. And NETGEAR saw their managed switches being used for that purpose. And that's when the product manager, Laurent Massieu, who I call the father of Pro AV at NETGEAR, he really started seeing that and tweaking things, so that what we came up with was basically an AV OS, AV operating system, that helps people configure a switch for IP. Because now the network's involved. I'm not a networking guy at all. I don't know how to configure a switch for that, for audio and video. So they made an easier way to configure a switch so that it can be more accessible to people that are now having to deal with AV over IP. And that works, of course, across your home network. We've been partners with Savant for many, many years, and Crestron now as well. And we make products on our own through the channel. So from the beginning, these switches were not sold on netgear.com. We made a clear choice. We knew that. So
this is not the same package of gear you find at Best Buy.
No, it's not. And we still have those, of course. We still have lots of great unmanaged switches or plus switches that you can buy for certain needs, but they're not going to be your best AV switches for sure. So we had that focus on the market. And then we started seeing more of the wireless needs for the CI channel, specifically last year about CEDIA time, really, when we started bringing out models specifically for the CI channel that you can't buy on our own store even, or on Amazon or somewhere else, that bundles some more pro support with it or our cloud management with it. So we listened to people and said, what we really want is a wireless product we can buy and sell to our customers that you won't discount the crap out of on somewhere, and you can buy, the customer could buy it for less. So really about a year ago, we started focusing on the CI channel and saying, look, switches have been in channel for years. You got those. Now you got wireless access points. And we also have a little teaser. We have a new router coming up as well. We'll announce at CEDIA. So then we have that total solution. We got everything you need right there. And people started chomping at the bit to be part of it.
How does the channel do business with you guys? Do you have, do you buy through distribution? Do you do direct? Like, what's the
Through
go-to-market
distribution.
method?
Yeah, through distribution. I mean, people already have their relationships, and we don't want to upset that, or no need to. And we're almost too big to do it by direct relationships. We have to have so many. So we have the distribution already worked out. So that's the way to go.
Okay. And you mentioned CEDIA. Do you want to drop a CEDIA booth number here, at least for anyone that might be booking their game plan for CEDIA?
Absolutely. We're at booth 3547. 3547.
This will be your second year at CEDIA?
We've been multiple years. Last year was really the big introduction.
Okay.
It was still a smallish booth. We're going to do a bigger booth presence this year, but we've been for several years at CEDIA. But now we have the right products, I think, for the channel there, and we know what we're doing, and people have heard of us more now. So it's more of a presence than any other year.
Okay. And in terms of if anyone does want to learn more about the NETGEAR gear, where do you send them? Is it to their local distributor? Do you want to name any distributors? Like, or do they go to you? Do they go to a head of sales? Like, who would be the person they would talk to inquire, if they're curious?
I think whoever you're buying gear from now, you talk to them. Our sales guys.
What if they're not buying NETGEAR gear, right? So
any AV gear. No, I mean any AV, whoever you buy stuff from. I'm always concerned about pointing somebody out because I don't want to miss somebody else. Okay. So I don't want to drop names, but really we've done the due diligence to connect with who you're dealing with now, most likely for other AV gear, other CI gear. And we'll be part of that for sure.
Okay. And you mentioned that you guys were partnered or collaborating with Savant and or Crestron. I'm just curious, are those things still in place? Are they reselling your gear? Are they, they're white labeling some gear you're making, or like, what can you talk about? I'm just curious. What's the nature of those relationships? And are there more coming?
Oh yeah, there's more. Origin Acoustics, another one that's been really great for us, and I shouldn't certainly drop them because they've been super enthusiastic and helped us figure out, what we can do better for the marketplace, as along with Savant and Crestron. So all of them, and there's more. We have like over 200 manufacturing partners that have certified our switches, and vice versa as well. From people like NDI, cameras, tons of camera manufacturers, but also, like I said, the Crestron and Savant and Origin Acoustics too, who are selling our equipment, and QSys Audio, Dante, you name it. The technologies that are out there, we support and we pass through, and we're certified, and we give you a profile that'll set everything correctly on that switch. But the important thing is that we have those relationships. We'll resell our gear. Nobody's white labeling our switches. You're going to see a NETGEAR switch. It's going to say NETGEAR on it because that helps give it credence, though it is a NETGEAR switch and you know what it is.
Silly question, maybe not. How big of a company is NETGEAR?
Good question. I don't keep track on that somewhere. I think we're in like 600-700 people overall.
Wow.
Somewhere in there. And the consumer side, again, we had that clear distinction between what we call the CHP, connected home products, and the small medium business SMB side, or just NETGEAR business. But that side of the company is certainly larger. Although our business side, with our emphasis in commercial AV to begin with, and now CI, is doing really, really well. So it's a really fun thing to see.
I'm going to go a bit tangential here, John, if you'll allow me. Mentioned a little bit ago this inflection point with AI entering our life. I know there's going to be a CEDIA panel on AI. I'm going to be sitting on that panel with some integrators and talk about applications and such. I'm curious from your standpoint as a content creator, your technical writing about very specific, obviously topics for products you guys are inventing or releasing. What role, either whether through copy or imagery, where are you experimenting, if at all, this role of AI in your day to day?
Definitely experimenting. Who hasn't? I think you have to. I mean, for one thing, I've used ChatGPT, of course. So you got to check it out, and we've used some things from that to start with. I think so. You seed it with something, and of course, it's only as good as what we've already written and put out there.
That's right.
So it isn't. Although was reading some stuff that can make some things up sometimes, but I think it just freely associates some things. But so it's only as good as what we've already written and what's already out there. What's helpful is when you're writing and with so many things going on to stop and focus for a second and put your brain in the space of this new router we have, and you're writing, a brochure for that or whatever. And actually, Brittany on my team does a lot of that anyway. It's not really me. Other things, press release, let's say, or something. But I've used it before to kind of seed the story for me and get some ideas from that. And that's great that way. It helps you kind of figure out maybe an approach you hadn't thought of for that. That's where I've used it before. I still think we have to edit that copy for sure every time, because you just don't know what it doesn't know all the nuances that you have for the way you talk about your product necessarily, especially for a new thing. If there's nothing already been written about us and the CI market, how will it know really what NETGEAR's benefits really are? So we used it for sure, and it's helpful as a seed starter, I'd say.
Is there any initiative or scuttlebutt happening within the rooms and the halls at NETGEAR around, just at a high level, AI entering the workplace and what role it should or should not have? Like that's a big business, right?
Yeah.
So, and what I'm assuming, and I'm consuming a lot of podcasts and content on the subject, and I think a lot of people are just inventing, discovering, experimenting what role it has in their lives or their business. And I was just curious, is there any mandates that you or your team or other teams are working on inside of NETGEAR, or is it really just self-directed, self-discovery?
Well, this is where I got to pull the public company card for one thing, but not that I have a whole lot to talk about anyway, but being a public company, I got to be careful sometimes about what
Yeah,
we're
don't
working
say
on.
anything that will get you in trouble for sure, or me in trouble.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't, I wouldn't say there's a directive from above for sure. There's nothing, it's certainly self-directed at this point. I can see how we would look at it for things like support or that. Again, it's going to be difficult to replace a person on the staff who writes for a living with that. We haven't been encouraged to use those tools necessarily. It isn't like somebody saying do that. With the workload, I can see how I might go that route just because I want to get more done. But we still contract a writer to do our case studies and white papers, things like that. And we do a lot of stuff internally. So there are certainly things they're working on, and I'm not at that senior level to know what they're working on, other ways to incorporate AI, but I'm sure there are some thoughts for sure.
Yeah, I'll give an example. So the output of this interview is a video, and the video has, audio and video. And we're now experimenting here at One Firefly with some AI tools that are take this, transcribe the full conversation, cross-reference that against ChatGPT and what it might theorize are interesting segments. And it will then summarize and cut the videos for portrait application onto social media profiles. And it does all of the above with a click. You click,
Love it.
and it's outputting something useful. And so our audience across our social channels is going to start to see more tight segments. A typical show's 30 to 60 minutes, but maybe 2 minutes of conversation might be particularly interesting or insightful or educational.
Yep.
And you can have a human do that video editing, right? Watch the whole thing, really decipher it and cut it. And, or you now with some AI tools, now we're still in testing phase. So we're not totally locked in on one particular tool. We're experimenting across a couple of different tools actually. But you're able to upload this video and it outputs a nearly finished product. And that's just like,
Yeah,
man, normally we might have had someone sit and do that for an hour or two. And now I can upload the video and get an output in 5 minutes. That is 5 to 10 minutes. That's useful, in that it enables us to do more. I'm a big personal
yeah,
advocate that AI, it's nothing more than a technology. AI plus a human allows you to do more than a human alone.
for
Just
sure.
no different than if I was going to go build a house and I was going to, I'll use an analogy. I've got to put a bunch of screws into something. Well, I could go in with a handheld screwdriver, or I could
Hmm.
go in with a power drill. I'm still going to build the house. Just one's going to let me get it done a little bit more effectively.
Yeah, that actually brings up a good point that I kind of overlooked. We are playing with and are using actually some AI in our webcast the same sort of way. There's a tool called Parmonic, and I have no stake in the company, but
Ooh, I
Parmonic,
hadn't heard that one. I'm gonna. What do
yeah.
you? How are you using it?
So we signed up for them to take a webinar, take a video. What is it? A webinar, video, and do the same thing. Cut it up into moments. So if you go to moments.netgear.com, you'll see
Ooh,
some of our past webinars. Moments.netgear.com. And you'll see different webinars. We can go in. So same sort of thing. Overnight, it'll go in and do a transcription of the video, and you have a website you can go to, and you can change those moments where you think it's more important. I'll be honest, the moments they choose aren't always what I think are most important. So, but you highlight the script and say, okay, this part's a moment, and it creates that portion from the video and puts them together. It'll make a trailer for you if you want of those moments. And then what
sure.
I love for our sales team is they're having a conversation with somebody, and you're saying, Mr. Integrator for the home, I don't really know much about VLANs. I don't know what they are. How do I need them? They can take a webinar and send you that moment on VLANs and let you view just that portion of the webinar versus sending you the link for the entire thing and you got to go find out where it is, or you have to go search to a certain timestamp. Here's the exact moment from that. And that's where AI is using that. Also, then that can become, we're going to use that for the stuff I was talking about earlier, coffee breaks and things where our teams in Germany, in France, in Japan can now take that transcription and somebody can revoice that video with the exact transcription. We don't have to write out a script ahead of time. And that's really
Are you using
powerful.
the AI voice where
Well,
you're
just
having?
using the script. They'll rescript they'll transcribe it in their own native, have somebody on staff revoice it
Okay.
who speaks Japanese, let's say.
I think
Versus,
there's AI
you know,
now that's actually you can have the AI voice read it in whatever language. I haven't gone down that path of experimentation, but
yeah,
I'm certainly seeing and hearing a lot about that on some of the Twitter feeds that I'm on about that type of technology.
I think that'll be fun.
I
Yeah.
think that's an example of using this new technology for good. As we also acknowledge, people are going to use it for evil and try to
Yeah.
make people say things they didn't say and put that out there and try to manipulate audiences. Um, it's an example of most things I think in life. You can use things for good or evil. It's your choice.
And that is truly scary for sure. But there are a lot of good things for it too, as always.
So if you were to look in your crystal ball, I ask a version of this conversation, this question, John, to most of my guests, and that is, what do you see in terms of the economic conditions? And I'm going to focus on North America for the question, even though we do have an audience around the world. What are you seeing maybe for the balance of this year and or into next year? So maybe there's an 18-month span there, 6 months this year, 12 months next year. Um, what can you say? And I know you're a publicly traded company, so you can't say anything that is inappropriate or would get you in trouble. But it's just the folks that are listening are trying to forecast what's ahead, and a lot of them have their nose to the grindstone, cranking out their work product or running their companies. And so, hearing people from different parts of the country, different perspectives, can be helpful. Anything that you can say or are allowed to say that was in your ability to predict?
Thank you for qualifying all that. Yeah. I'll just put it this way, I think, Ron, that we just introduced a new line of 12 switches for AV over IP. So in addition to all the existing stuff we have, and we're making more the router, so the other access points. We have Wi-Fi 7 access points coming up later this year. So I think we're still really positive on what's this industry, CI, and also commercial industry are going to go through in the next 6 months and then 12 months next year as well. I know there's been it's really been up and down for sure. We saw a huge increase during the pandemic of everybody outfitting their offices and homes with
Yep.
Wi-Fi, clearly. and some switches followed suit with that. And then everything pulled back, of course. And now we're seeing a lot more business. We haven't grown, a ton. We've grown over the years. We're getting more and more market share all the time, which is great for us. I know the market itself, the industry itself, has pulled back a little bit, and I see that continuing to the end of the year. But it's going to go back up again, I think, as we figure out this transition of work from home and commercial and office space changing. I think we're just in this flux mode for a while here still.
Are you segmented within the NETGEAR business that you are the integrator channels, or are you also observant of the retail spaces? I keep saying like the Best Buys or the other places where people, or online where people might buy your gear. And I'm asking that question because I'm curious if you are seeing, or you're allowed to say, is CI performing differently or better? I would theorize it performs better than maybe retail, where you have your everyday person that might shop at Best Buy might be more affected by this economy than maybe the consumer of the CI dealer. That's the person that you and I serve day to day.
Yeah, I don't actually see all those numbers, but the NETGEAR business side of NETGEAR certainly does sell on Amazon, NETGEAR.com, and Best Buy and other places, CDW, whatever. So we do have the smaller switches, the non-AV switches, and some other access points and lower end stuff that are being sold there. But I'm not involved in all those numbers. And yeah, I got to be careful about prophesizing what's coming up on all that.
To get specific about the NETGEAR AV brand, when they get a piece of gear from your channel, from you, is it literally, it doesn't say NETGEAR, it says NETGEAR AV?
No, it still says NETGEAR right now. It still says NETGEAR.
It still says NETGEAR. So it's really from an internal team standpoint that you're internally branding it NETGEAR AV?
Correct. You're correct. Yep.
What's your opinion on the value of that NETGEAR brand name that everybody on the planet probably has heard of or purchased? And I'm thinking from the standpoint of the integrator, and the integrator has a brand, but the integrator sells some brands that the consumer has heard of. Like, we do a lot of work with Sony here at One Firefly, and we find that that Sony brand name has a lot of pull, a lot of power, a lot of horsepower with the consumer, more so than the integrator's brand name, which maybe is a smaller, more localized brand.
Mhm.
What's your how do you think about that from the marketing standpoint, the role of that NETGEAR brand in the life or business of the integrator?
I hate to say so extreme of blessing and curse, but it is sort of that where, yes, everybody's heard of NETGEAR in their homes and everything else. But then when they look at a business, it's different. For the CI channel, it is your home we're still talking about. So it's your customer's home. But I think NETGEAR has such a good name. We've been around for 26 years. So people understand we've been around the business. We know networking, and that's a real positive thing. They associate with us. And I think the AV part of it really just helps focus, like, for the channel more than the end customer. The end customer can see NETGEAR and they're happy with that. We know it. But still, we have some challenges to overcome because not everybody thinks of us as that premium brand. So I think on the NETGEAR consumer side as well, we're establishing that, no question, with our Orbi routers and the mesh systems for homes. That is the high-end home router of choice now for your Wi-Fi. So that helps us in the business side of things at NETGEAR and the CI channel, where people see NETGEAR as the premium. But then on the commercial side or CI channel as well, we're not the most expensive option. We're rightly priced, I guess you'd say, but you don't have to pay exorbitant amount of money for a switch that's really tuned for AV now. You can get a NETGEAR switch that is awesome for that, and know that we have put the work into it with the NETGEAR name to make sure it's going to work well. How's that for a good marketing spin?
No, I think that's excellent marketing spin. I'll leave it.
It's
at
true
that.
though, too. It's no spin. I shouldn't use the word spin. It's true.
It's true. No, that's the fun thing about marketing, is properly properly understanding your customer. I would posit that starts with the foundation of the strategy, and then ultimately understanding your product and understanding where it fits in the ecosystem out there in the wild. So that's how I interpret what you just said. You understand the customer and you understand where your product fits, and that's how you position it.
So come by CEDIA and take a listen, and also tell us your opinions, and we'll take them to heart for sure.
Awesome. I want to close with music. I know that one of your personal passions and hobbies is is music. Tell us about that. When you go to your happy place or one of your happy places, what is it that you're doing?
Yeah, motorcycling is a happy place for sure. The other happy place is music. I've been playing drums for ever since I was a kid, and most of that actually hasn't been with a band in my 20s or 30s or whatever. It really wasn't playing with a band. It was me just playing the music at home. That was always fun. So I've had an electronic a set of V drums that's upstairs. It's right there. I'm thinking, oh, I can take a break whenever I want, but I haven't done enough of that. So this job is just kind of demanding. And when I'm off, while that's a pleasure thing, it's still time away from the wife and dogs as
Yeah.
well. So I got to play more of that, but it's been fun. I love jazz. And that's another story from the Olympics I should have touched on too. I was able to play with the guys during Salt Lake City. We had a little jazz band, and actually we played blues, we played rock and roll. We had a band together during the Olympics that played. I shipped my drums out to Salt Lake City, and we played there. We had like Berkeley School of Music trained bass player and keyboard player. We had a pedal steel person, a couple of vocalists. So random things like that are what make it really entertaining. And I will spend, when I retire, my plan is to play more music for sure.
All right. Well, everybody listening is now your accountability partner. So on the day that you retire, we're going to ask you what your plans are for your music. But there's retirement, no time in the immediate future. This is
I got
your
plenty
time.
of time. I got plenty of time.
You got plenty of time. John, for the folks that are tuned in and want to meet you directly or get in touch with you directly, where would you send them?
I would send them first to LinkedIn. It's easy to find me. If you can spell my name right, then you can find me. Otherwise, netgear.com/AV has all the NETGEAR kind of stuff. But also, if you want to email me, you can email Henkel, JHENKEL, @netgear.com.
John, it was a pleasure getting to know you more and to have you here on show 247 of Automation Unplugged. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me, Ron. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'll see you at CD, I hope.
You will. I'm going to be there in full force. All the now I'm not as prepared as you, so I actually don't know my CDO booth number. But if they're listening this far in the show, the audience will know how to come find us. Look for One Firefly. Come say hello. But thank you, John. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ron.
All right, folks, there you have it. John Henkel, show 247. John was the director of product marketing at NETGEAR AV. And John really is, I think, a wonderful demonstration of someone that has had a varied and just super interesting background. And he's pulling all of those life experiences and learnings, both as a practitioner of his skill and trade as an editor, but then understanding the commercial or the marketing and the translation side, ultimately, of helping vendors, manufacturers now at a number of different locations understand the person that's going to use the gear, and then ultimately how to translate and communicate with them so that everyone wins. The users of the technology win, and the manufacturers win and accomplish their objectives. And John was so willing to share, and it was a lot of fun to have him on the show. So definitely make a point to go out and say hi to John and his team at CEDIA. Again, this is not a promotional spot, a paid spot by NETGEAR. I just thought John was interesting, and you guys and gals would appreciate having him on the show and learning about him and what he's doing over there at NETGEAR AV. And I honestly had no idea what NETGEAR was doing. So I learned a lot through this conversation as well. So on that note, I am going to sign off. You know what I didn't do, folks? I didn't even pull up all my show art to say goodbye. So I'm just going to say goodbye and sign off. And I will see you all on the next show. Again, we're here in the balance of this year and into the future. We're doing about 2 shows a month. If you say, well, how does that compare to the past? For much of 2020 through maybe a month ago, we were doing about 3 shows a month. But to do a show, it takes a lot of time, money, resources. And I love you all, and I appreciate our watchers and listeners. We're going to keep it going. We're having a lot of fun doing Automation Unplugged. But we're going to scale it back just a little bit. We are scaling it back just so we can focus on other priorities. That, if everything's a priority, then nothing's a priority. And so we are properly scaling resources to get all the things that we want to get done here at One Firefly to serve you all. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and I will see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Take care.